Hey parents and family members, it's Mrs. Davis here at school, and it's time for another math help video. Now in video number 1, I introduced to you some math tools that your child would be using in first grade, and we also discussed some vocabulary that your child would be using, and I wanted you to be familiar with those things so you could help your child this year be successful when they're doing some homework and you're working with them. In video 2, we actually used those tools. I modeled for you how to use those tools when solving addition math problems. So in video 3, we're going to come in contact with those tools again. This time, we're going to be using them to solve subtraction math problems. Yeah, I wanted you to be familiar with how your child will be using these tools when they're working with subtraction math problems. So let's get started with some vocabulary. Now, I know if you've ever asked any child in first grade that I've ever come in contact with, if I say to them, what do you know about subtraction? They're always going to come up with take away. So an early concept of subtraction is that you are going to be taking away, or you're going to be subtracting, minusing, so you can find the difference or how many left over. So the students will be using all of those terms: take away, subtracting, minusing. They will also be familiar with the symbol, the minus symbol, and they will be thinking about finding the difference or what's left over. So we're going to go back in time and think about those vocabulary terms that we talked about that are so important, because when we're working with subtraction, we really ultimately want them to think about the relationship between addition and subtraction. And we're really going to focus in on those partners, because that fluency piece for the children is going to come in when they really understand the relationship between addition and subtraction. So they'll know that these two partners equal 10. So if they see 10 minus 4, they know automatically that the missing part or the difference is 6. So we want to get to this point and use those words, whole, part, so that the students can really work on that relationship and build fluency. Until they get there, using math tools is going to help them be successful. And you know, the first tool they're going to go to, the digits. Just like with addition, they're going to be using these counters, and they're available, so why not start with those? And when they see a math problem, they may see, for instance, 8 minus 2, and we talked about this in the last video, that they might see it in this form, horizontal or vertical, but it's still the same math problem. 8 minus 2 equals 8 minus 2 equals. But the one thing they have to understand when they're really first looking at a subtraction math problem is that these two numbers are not parts. So that's really a big starting point. They have to understand that that first number in the subtraction math problem is actually the whole. So again, using those vocabulary words when we're working through these types of problems really helps them understand that this is the whole. This is what I have. That's the total. And I'm going to be minusing or subtracting a part of that whole. So again, using those math words is going to really help them, again, get to that fluency part that they really need. Now let's use a few tools so that you can be familiar with how your child will be working in first grade. And if they come home with some homework, you can make sure they're doing it correctly. So let's go first of all to this 10 frame. So if they were going to be solving 8 minus 2, they would know that they're going to build the whole which is 8 in this case, and they're going to want to fill the top of that frame and then work forward. So 8 minus 2, and there's your difference. There's what's left over, there's the missing part. So that would be how they could quickly use the 10 frame tool. Now, my favorite tool for subtraction when I'm starting out in the beginning of this work with them, I love to use the whole part map because you're starting with your whole when you're thinking about subtraction. So let me just slip that on there. Whole. So again, going back to this 8 minus 2, I'm going to build in the whole section 8. And I always tell them, you know, work on organizing your counters. Don't just put them in a sloppy manner. And that way you can really know if you've got your whole amount, because if you don't have 8 in there, you have too many or too few, it's going to cause the difference to be incorrect. Even if you subtract correctly, the difference will be incorrect. So 8 minus 2, or subtracting or taking away 2. Now this whole is not whole anymore. That 8 is not 8. So you've actually got 2 parts now. So we're going to find the missing part or the difference by pulling that second part down. And again, this really builds this partnership because they can see whole, part. I've taken that whole and I've broken it into 2 parts. So I really love working with this tool when I first start off with subtraction. Now let's think about the number line. Oh, don't let me bypass this. Remember that number bond. Again, it's going to be the same way. Whole, you're going to build the whole and pull those parts. So it's really the same type of model. So I really don't need to work through that because it's going to be the same activity as building whole and pulling the parts. So let's move on to the number line. So with the number line is a little bit more advanced. It's more abstract, but again, they have to really be familiar with the fact that they're looking at the whole number and then they're going to be subtracting, so they're not moving forward, but they're moving backwards on the number line. So with 8 minus 2, they will start at 0, and I've got my little froggy counter, little jumper, and then we're going to go straight to the whole number. We know 8 on the number line, so we can just jump straight there. We're lining up with the 8, and then we're going to be subtracting, minusing, going back. 1, 2. My froggy got a little bit wild there. So 8 minus 2 brings us to our difference. So when they're working with subtraction equation, that's a different direction. So that'll be a little bit more work. Now, let's talk about 2 more strategies, and these are going to be the most abstract, the hardest to work through, and they have to be really versed and really familiar with the number line and with subtraction to go to these last 2 strategies. This will be our ultimate goal too, to be using more advanced math strategies to solve subtraction math problems. So let's think about counting back. So it's the same as using the number line, except we're going to be using our mind and our digits, but not to put up and to take down. So in count back, they would start with the whole number, but they would say it 8, and then they would minus 2 like this, 8, 7, 6. So that's a little more advanced. So as we're working through these tools, we're going to work up to using these other strategies as well. We want to give them as many different things to use as they can to be successful. This one's probably the toughest with subtraction because you're actually adding to subtract. It's called count up. So let's practice that, and that will be, again, in the future as we work through a lot of subtraction strategies. These will be the two that we work on at the end as we're really well versed with the other tools. So count up. In counting up, you're actually going to start with the part that you're going to be taking away. So this is really strange when first graders are starting off because they're adding instead of taking away. So it seems really weird, and it seems weird even to me to teach this as a strategy, but again, go back to these partners. So if they're well versed with the partners, then this is going to make a lot of sense. So start with this number here, the smaller number, to the parts, and then we're going to count forward until we get to the whole number. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It took me 6 counts forward to get to that whole number. So this is the missing part, or the partner that I want to find the difference right here. All right. Wow, that's a lot of strategies for first graders. And again, repeating that, we're going to give them lots of tools to use so that they can be successful. They can pick the tool that they are most comfortable with. But again, with different math problems, they may want to use different strategies to help them solve, whichever one is going to be quicker and the most successful. All right, parents, as always, I hope this was helpful to you, and until our next math help video, have a good one.